Thank you all so much for joining our webinar on creating experiential shopping moments online. So let's get started. We have with us our panelists today are, Sebastian Siemiatkowski, who's the CEO of payments service Klarna, which you probably know for its buy now, pay later service. Then we have Aaron Levant, who's the CEO of video commerce platform NTWRK. And some of the backers of NTWRK include Live Nation and LeBron James. So I'm looking forward to hearing more about that. And then I'm your host, Maghan McDowell, the innovation editor of Vogue Business. So today we're going to be talking about trends in creating experiential digital shopping moments online. And I think what's interesting here is that for so long, pop-ups and immersive experiential events were becoming a really important part of the retail conversation, especially with the younger consumers. But obviously in recent months, those have not been possible. And brands are having to use platforms and technologies in new ways to recreate that immersive experiential feeling in the digital world. So we're going to highlight a few trends and insights from how brands are doing that today. And of course, if you have any questions, remember to submit them in the Q&A section in your Zoom interface, and we will try to get to them at the end. So, Aaron, I would love to start with you. For those of you who haven't heard of NTWRK or you haven't downloaded the app, it's kind of been described as a QVC for Gen Zs and millennials, and it's really known for sneakers, streetwear, and cool pieces of art and culture. So Aaron, briefly explain to us what we should know about NTWRK and how it's kind of rethinking the idea of live shopping.
Yeah, I think you described it pretty well with thinking what is QVC or HSN, that kind of old school American television shopping format where you have celebrities and personalities coming on air to sell, I guess maybe like a George Foreman grill, right? Like something that, you would see that maybe my parents or grandparents would buy. And how do you reimagine that for this, highly engaged, mobile first, social generation of shoppers who, are still very engaged with celebrity driven products, drop culture, see now, buy now, and bringing all those things together in kind of an intuitive technology experience and curating for them, the entire internet of things across pop culture and youth culture into one seamless format is really what we're attempting to do. And particularly coming out of Asia and China specifically, there's been a huge influx of live stream video shopping. Platforms like Taobao are doing billions of dollars of transactions, and that hasn't really been adopted in North America at scale yet. So taking some of those best practices from Asia, an old school format like QVC or HSN, and combining, really high touch curation and drop culture into one package that is NTWRK, and that's really what we're up to.
Mm-hmm. So what we're looking at on the screen here is, so basically on your phone, if there's a drop, there'll be a host, and they'll kind of walk through a product that's only available for this moment in time, and then like they show it, and you can like shop and chat with people, other viewers while you're watching. Is that kind of the very simplified version?
It's exactly what's happening, and it's all appointment based. So in the world of content and in the world of commerce, mostly everything is on demand. On content, you can go to Netflix or YouTube and start watching when you want. Yeah. On commerce, you can go to Amazon and buy anything you want 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. There's unlimited options. So we really do the inverse or reverse psychology of what's happening both in the world of e-commerce and content, being that we drive you to a specific appointment-based time through a push notification, and you tune in and you have the chance to watch and engage and buy live. And if you miss that moment, you miss out. So it's really about creating urgency and like kind of an engaged appointment-based moment. And that's what makes it a true social commerce experience. Mm-hmm. And we're really swimming upstream compared to the direction everyone else is going, where they're giving you an unlimited amount of options from SKUs to buying options. We're really making it very finite and, really entertainmentizing that retail moment.
That's cool. Okay. So as I understand it, when the person's selling, it's not like every moment they have a new item. It's like the focus is whatever that drop is there.
Yeah, I think the approach to merchandising for most e-commerce retailers is to have unlimited amounts of SKUs, variants, colors. I think whatever the statistic is, Amazon has 36 million SKUs. Network may only, if we're doing our job right, we want to have less than 500 SKUs a year. And it's about doing a high amount of volume over a very curated set of SKUs, because, you know, finding something good on the internet is like finding a needle in a haystack. So our job is to, you know, merchandise it down to just the most meaningful products and narratives and talent, and hopefully sell a high volume of those things, rather than giving you, you know, 20 different black t-shirts, because we think the consumer, when you give them too many options, it almost becomes paralyzing. And there is some statistics around the psychology of having too many options is actually a deterrent to doing business.
Totally. Paradox of choice.
Yeah.
So it kind of sounds like in some ways, I see a lot of parallels in Twitch and like video game streaming where you interact and you watch something. And Sebastian, I want to turn it to you. I understand that Klarna found that spending on video games is up about 180%. What else are you seeing there with video shopping in different nations and different behaviors?
I think Aaron already covered a lot of it, but I would say that definitely this is like, to what Aaron said, there's a global trend. I think what's interesting about this from my perspective, look, I've been in this industry now, like I co-founded Klarna 15 years ago, right? I was 23 years then, so I'm not that old yet. But the point is that, you know, I've seen this for 15 years. And what I find so amazing when I look at this network, right? And do you pronounce it network, Aaron? Is that the right way
network,
to pronounce
yeah.
it? Thank you. So then like, the amazing thing, I'm looking at this and I'm like, oh my God, for 15 years, e-commerce has been a long list of items. Like 15 years. We thought it was so amazing, digitalization, whatever. For 15 years, it's been every e-commerce retailer I go in today is a long list of items, right? Basically, yeah, there's some variations or whatever, but basically that's it, right? And so I think that like what's fascinating about this is it's finally seeing this innovation around how do you present products, how do you really use digital platforms and digital technology to present products in a new way, to connect the social aspect of it, the way you present the products and so forth. You're really creating a new curated experience, a different way of a mix of entertainment and shopping, right? And so I think that's so exciting, and it's just fascinating to me that it's taken 15 years, to get to this point. But obviously, COVID and what's going on in the world right now is expediting this, right? So it's accelerating this trend. And so we're seeing that in a lot of markets. Klarna is active in about 20 markets. We've seen a lot of markets, a big shift towards these, live shopping in different formats and different setup. But I think few actually live up to the quality of the experience that network is doing. Is just very differentiated. But there are people trying different things, obviously on YouTube or whatever. But it's slightly different. So no, I think it's a strong trend, but it's exciting to me because it really shows. I mean, I think COVID is also. To some people now, we're seeing that people are shopping more online than they used to do before. So you see a shift, and most people expect that it won't really go back all the way back. It might drop a little bit as physical stores reopen, etc. Mm-hmm. But obviously, what this means also is an acceleration of that shift, and that creates now we create new formats and a new way of interacting with customers, which is it's just exciting for a geek like myself in e-commerce. It's just super exciting to see.
Well, and one thing I think I want to touch on. This idea of the drop, because as I understand it, drops are a really important part of creating the sense of urgency and having people come at a certain time. And when we think of the old school drop, it would be, people lining up outside a store, only this item, limited quantity, limited amount of time. Aaron, tell us why drops are important to network and how you create this new idea of exclusivity, not necessarily in the traditional sense.
Yeah, I think, drop culture has obviously been, well publicized over the last few years as kind of the new de facto way for brands to take product to market, because it creates more urgency. And whether the product is truly limited or not, it's the way you're choosing to distribute it and tell that story, and at least create the bottleneck around this very, finite amount of time on when it's available. And almost like the countdown clock. It's like New Year's Eve, right? It's this moment of anticipation that's building up. And everyone wants to get their hands on it. And I think, Supreme and Nike, those brands have been masters of doing that. And now you're seeing drop culture expand into all walks of life. Maybe you'll see people dropping a bag of potato chips soon, right? But I think it creates a story and an added entertainment value. And whether the product is truly limited or not, I don't even think is a variable. But, people got kind of bored with just, hey, there's new merchandise on the floor, go get it. That doesn't seem very special. So, as we think about drops in network, it's as much as a moment of time, as sometimes it's limited, sometimes it's actually unlimited. But it creates focus around one particular idea. And again, going back to that kind of inverse idea of optionality, it's hard to sell hundreds of SKUs. So how do we really focus on this one really meaningful product? And I think you'll find with most brands, whether it's as big as Nike or as small as, an independent brand or retailer, there's a very much an 80-20 rule that very few SKUs or products drive the majority of their business. So it's really focusing in on either your most meaningful products or the products that have a story to tell. They're collaborative. There's a license. There's a product innovation there. It's not a commoditized product. So how do you, bring a special product to light through a very definitive way to bring it to market, create urgency, excitement, and a story around it? And that's really what Network is doing day in and day out, is just constantly dropping products. And again, very few products. We're not dropping 100 items at once. We're dropping usually 1 to 3 items at once maximum. And it helps people focus in and actually probably dive deeper into those brand storytelling moments where a brand collaborates with a musician, an artist, an athlete on creating something special, and allows consumers to really hear that story rather than just seeing hundreds of product stories at once. And that seems to resonate with consumers. And, that's working really well for us right now. And I think we'll continue to do that across many verticals, some that wouldn't usually be expected. Maybe not potato chips, but we have done it with hot sauce.
Very cool. Well, and it's totally true. When I was watching some videos earlier this week, it was like, if I had seen this shirt, for example, in a store, I wouldn't have known the backstory. I wouldn't have known that this is an artist and all of these items were created, in this certain way. And so it totally develops a new appreciation for the product. And it's really cool to see. So I think I want to talk a little bit, you mentioned the storytelling. So tell us, and I know you have so much going on, but if you, as quickly as you can, tell us about this new Snapchat TV show and then this festival you have just announced.
Yeah, so The Drop is a new extension of Network off of our platform that's going to live on Snapchat, where we're creating original shows that usually feature a celebrity and a fashion designer, and you show the process of them creating a garment together, for example, and you'll show the collaboration process and how that comes together, and you'll see artwork being created in real time. And then at the end of that show, you'll be able to actually buy that thing. So you actually see not only them coming together, but the whole creative process from the sketch to the final output of the actual garment or product, whatever it is they're creating on that week's show, and then be able to buy it right there on Snap. So that's an exciting new partnership, and it's going to be on Snapchat's Discover channel, where potentially we get hundreds of millions of eyeballs. So it allows us a much broader audience than we have on our own native platform, and we're really excited about this partnership. Mm-hmm. And then on Transfer, this is call it a digital festival. So in my previous career, before Network, I was heading up a shopping and culture event called Complex Con, which is basically like a street culture Comic-Con where brands came together with musicians and content and dropped sneakers and clothing, and over $30 million in GMV was done in just 2 days in one building, right? Wow. So I called that the new mall. This is a digital version of that that's somewhere between a physical kind of street culture convention and what I really love, which is in Asia, you have like Alibaba Singles Day, which is this massive online shopping festival where they're doing $36 billion in transactions in just 24 hours. So how do you bring these ideas together? We curate brands, musicians, talent, and everything from music and DJ sets to conversations about popular culture, design, even things like what's going on in the world with social justice, and brands are creating exclusive products or bringing you early releases of things like sneakers, and we're putting it in one cohesive package and curating it over a 2-day period. And, in this post-COVID world, what does a festival look like? What does a shopping festival look like? And I think we're trying to be at the forefront of that genre. So we're excited about what we're doing with both of these things, both very different, but it's really, an extension of how we continue to reimagine what Network is, where we're transacting, and how we entertain our audiences.
And that's all on the phone? That's what the festival is?
Yeah, it's a completely digitally native experience that lives on Network's mobile, iOS, and Android apps only. It'll be a mix of live and pre-recorded video content. But, on an average day, let's say Network does 1 to 2 drops. It's very finite on these days. You could see 15 to 20 drops per day. So about every 30 minutes on the minute, there'll be a new piece of content and a new proprietary product offering for 2 straight days.
Very cool. Sebastian, I want to talk to you a little bit because I realize you have Klarna just announced something called Heartbeats for Sneakers. And it's also building on this idea of sneakers and drops. So tell us a little bit about that, because as I understand it, you're kind of working against this idea of bots being a part of the sneaker drop process.
Right. So there was, I think it was a really interesting. So we're trying to find new different ways to work together with the retail partners. We have about 200,000 brands globally that we work with, right? And they're everything from like an H&M, a Zara to, a Nike and Adidas, or, other brands, right? Could be streetwear brands and so forth. And I think in this case, what we found very interesting was this whole company, this whole concept of bots. There's a big problem of that online, where bots obviously buy all the drops, so there are no drops left for the normal people. Yeah. And this is a big issue, right? And so we did this. We actually did this together with High Snobiety, where we found this unique technology which basically allows you to read your heart rate through touching the screen. And basically that's a way to both kind of show your affection that you're seeing this product that you really want to get, so your heartbeat goes up. But obviously also a way to it's hard for a bot to be able to send a heartbeat. So we saw that as an opportunity to actually kind of, avoid all the bots buying the products. And so we've done like a number of unique drops together with them and so forth. I think one of the features that Klarna has developed, which is very connected to this whole space, is that, and it's kind of surprising to us partially that this became so successful, but a couple of months ago, we launched in the US a feature called a wish list, which basically the Klarna app allows you can use it as a browser, so like a Safari or Chrome, and you can go to any website, any of the online merchants, whether they're Klarna or not, doesn't matter. You can go to any of them and you can select a specific product and you can say, hey, I want this on my wish list, right? And then what we do is we start monitoring that product for you. So we can, for example, monitor if it drops in price. We'll be able to monitor if it's back in stock. You can also share these wish lists among people and stuff like that. And when we launched this feature, we didn't have it was more for fun to see a little bit, the pickup. And in the last 6 months in the US alone, we've had like millions and millions of products wishlisted, which was quite surprising for us, right? And now, so this is kind of what we can connect then to these drops, is we can connect these wish lists, we can curate. We did, for example, wish list together with Killing Eve. You might be familiar with that TV show. So we've done specific, together with them, specific picked clothes that was in the TV show. We've done wish list with that. And this sneakerheads is kind of connected to do that, doing these kind of things together with our retailers and merchants. And specifically the brand has worked extremely well. I think, this, for example, it's going on right now, has a massive, and what's interesting is it both drives sales, but it also drives a big level of engagement, right? Which is really what we're looking for, engaging with our users and with our merchants, to build that engagement. So it has, positive aspects in both kind of longer term and shorter term.
Mm-hmm. No, totally. It's really interesting. And the heartbeat thing sounds crazy. Who would have thought that? We're talking a lot about sneakers, and I want to quickly ask you guys, why are sneakers kind of driving this innovation? And they're kind of almost being seen as a collector's item. And now, the same behavior is being used with art, or sneakers are being treated as art. So tell us a little bit about what you're seeing in sneakers. I know Klarna data, I have a statistic here, increase in spend by Gen Z and millennials on athleisure and loungewear for 1 week in April was up 105%. So Aaron, tell us kind of what you're seeing as far as the merger of art and sneakers.
Yeah, look, sneakers is a global phenomenon for, 3 decades now, beyond anything I could have ever imagined. It's only continuing to get bigger, where sneakers is now an asset class. Sotheby's is doing auctions of sneakers for $1 million+ dollars. Obviously, the resale sneaker market is enormous. So from a value perspective of the actual objects, or even just the celebration of them in culture, what you have on your screen on the right is a sneaker vase that resembles a Nike Jordan shoe that we sold for $500, and I think we sold 100,000+ of these in like 8 minutes, right? So it's like people love the sneakers themselves to wear, to collect, to resell, to celebrate it through art. We're often selling prints and the thing you see on the left there is an artist's interpretation of sneakers, almost done as like still life impressionism art that we're going to put onto a t-shirt. You know, it's a global phenomenon that has such a sticky audience that is willing to spend on it. They're literally willing to fight people in person in a line. They're willing to build technology, as Sebastian mentioned, you know, for these bots and these cook groups to try to beat whether it's Nike.com or Supreme or retailers. And literally, I think myself on buying things for gifts or things we sell on network, I've spent $150,000 at resale value in the last year buying sneakers, right? It's just such an engaged audience, and these people are so crazy about it. I don't think there's anything like this in any other category that I can really compare it to. The virality of it and the intensity of these fans is just off the charts, and I don't see it slowing down anytime soon.
Mm-hmm. It's so interesting. It kind of reminds me like that picture on the left of like the Dutch masters, and it's like the tulip trade. So it's sort of like our modern day tulip trading. That's very cool. So one thing I want to touch on, because you mentioned the price, I have here that like some of the most expensive items sold on network went for $2,150, $500. I mean, so these are pretty expensive purchases, especially for younger audiences. So Sebastian, tell me a little bit about how installment payments come into play with this, because I know that's what Klarna was known for. So this installment payment idea, how is that helping younger people access new ideas of luxury?
Well, I think the background really too comes from the fact that Klarna was founded in markets that were debit card centric, where people don't have debit cards. They have they don't have credit cards. They have debit cards, and actually there are more things than just installments that people don't think about. If I have a debit card and I shop online, I have other issues. Might be like I haven't got my salary check yet, so it's actually empty, or you know what, like I'm gonna make a purchase, but what if I make a return and then the merchant hold on to my salary money for 3 weeks? If it's my credit card balance, I don't care. If it's my debit card, it's actually my salary money you're holding on to. So there are multiple issues with using debit cards online, right? And I think that so that was kind of our whole idea, to be able to solve for that. And what's happened more recently is in the UK and the US is that, millennials, the younger generation, don't have credit cards anymore. So 70%, 70 of the millennials in the US don't carry a credit card. They only have a debit card, right? And so, but they're still so that means they have no access to revolving. They don't have an access to a credit card, et cetera, that they can use. And so we're introducing them, giving them an option to say, take a purchase of $500 or $400, splitting it on installment every second week. And what's great about this is that it's actually without fees for the consumers, right? So there's no interest rate associated with it. And that's, has become extremely popular with the consumers because in a way it's advantageous to them. It doesn't cost them anything. It allows them to make the product more affordable. If it's slightly more expensive, it allows them. And it's also, in our view, a much better concept, the kind of revolving, which is confusing. And you don't know, here it's very clear. It's an installment for a set period of time and without any specific, added interest rate for you as a consumer. So it's become extremely popular. And we've seen that in the UK, in the US, where it's not uncommon to see, large retailers seeing like 25-30% share of checkout on these payment options like Klarna. Mm-hmm. And obviously it drives higher average order value. It drives higher conversion rate for these retailers, which is why, it's heavily becoming more and more accepted and preferred by merchants. So it's really changed, but what we're trying to do with Klarna is kind of think beyond that. To us, that's like a introductory offer for using Klarna. But then we hope that people, when they use the product, realize that it actually is very differentiated from all the other payments experiences that you have. So, for example, give you a very concrete example, which I think is a very nice one, though, is that like for every transaction when you buy with Klarna, we actually get the SKU level data, right? So think about when you open, PayPal or Amex, it just says, $100 I spent here or $500 I spent there or whatever it might be. With Klarna, you actually see images of the items that you bought, right? And so that already creates a differentiating experience. It's easier to remember, what was it that I bought now again? What did I actually spend my money on? We help customers if they want to make a return. We help them, inform them how to do it, et cetera, et cetera. So shipping, for example, we can track shipping, show when shipping arrives. So we're trying to think around not only kind of the act of payment, but rather think about the whole shopping experience and like how can we enhance the experience of our partners without becoming a marketplace, because that's not what we're interested in. There's tons of marketplace there, but what I see with what Aaron is doing and what other people is doing, there's going to be so many different channels. People find, different people find, or new companies find new ways of curating content, of guiding consumers towards great purchases. And then if you look at the brands, them themselves are getting better and better. Nike has probably never sold as much online as they do now as a share of their total. So the brands are also getting better at selling their own merchandise and so forth. So what we're trying to do is just think about how can we help all these parties enhance the experience for the consumer and make it even smoother and even nicer to shop online, whether it's like here loyalty points or, whether it's other aspects.
Mm-hmm. And I hear you talking about a lot of partnerships with brands and sort of like co-marketing campaigns or other ways of driving loyalty. Tell us a little bit about a new program you announced called Vibe, which is a loyalty program. So tell us how that works.
Yeah, so we're trying to find, different ways of how do we create further incentivize or help our consumers find new products and inspiration and so forth. So we basically, this is one program that we're rolling out. We have worked here a lot. I mean, one of the advantages that Klarna has is obviously because we understand the consumers across all of the retailers, it's easier for us to identify and make things more relevant for the specific consumer that is users. I mean, we have 85 million users worldwide. We do about 1 million transactions a day. So it allows us to really target and understand what is relevant for these customers, and especially considering the SKU level data that we know not only that they spent somewhere, but we actually know what they bought, right? So that makes the ability for us to utilize that data to make something more relevant and then but again, we're using that with partners like NTWRK or others. We want to use that programs to actually, identify and drive relevance both on the consumer side and on the merchant side. So that you target those programs. You see here examples from Foot Lockers, whatever it might be, that we target this around the relevant customers, and then it becomes more interesting because otherwise, you just don't want to. What you want to avoid is kind of the internet of retargeting where you're being haunted by ads, right? That's the worst outcome. So you got to be very selective and smart here about really providing value, right? If you do these type of things, the consumer needs to feel that it's actually adding some kind of value to me. Like somehow it's making my, it's discovering things that are really relevant for me. It's providing me with new interesting things that I would not have found otherwise. Mm-hmm. Otherwise, it's just, it's not that relevant. So that's how we're trying to think about it.
Mm-hmm. Interesting. You mentioned earlier the Klarna app. So, and I understand you had recently a partnership with Kinzo to do a sample sale where there were items that were exclusively available only on the Klarna app. So can you tell us a little bit about how that worked?
Yeah, no, so we did that, and it was actually really, really successful. So we managed to do a program with them where so again, we are extremely excited. We'll see where all of this goes, but it wasn't more than a year ago that we kind of added a browser functionality to our app. So it, similar to Safari, Chrome, you could go to any website. And part of the idea was simply that, especially in the US where Klarna, we have now about 8.5 million users, and we're adding a lot of new retailers and merchants continuously, but there's still going to be a limitation that you can only use Klarna where a merchant has integrated us. So we said, can we kind of get ahead of that somehow? Would we be able to allow consumers to go everywhere and use Klarna wherever? And that was the idea of the browser, that you could do that. But then we started seeing that people actually use the browser a lot. There's almost people have been looking for can I have a special browser for just shopping? And what are the features that such a browser would give me, right? How could it, and then we created the wish list for example, what if instead of having one basket of items on this retailers and then another one there, and then I forgot it and I emptied it, and so whatever. What if I could create one across multiple retailers? What about my browsing history where I can see which products I've actually seen previously? So we said how can we again enhance this experience? And they're, doing kind of actually providing people also with interesting discovery options, or providing them with feed them with new content, things that might be relevant for them, has also proven to be very, very popular. So, So it's actually quite interesting, but we've had days where like, you know, we're in the shopping app section. We're like among the top 20 most downloaded apps in the US. So it's quite crazy to see how you know, how well it's worked.
Mm-hmm.
But it's been through continuous iterations, just experimentation, trying to identify what consumers are looking for.
Mm-hmm. Well, speaking of what consumers are looking for, I've seen a lot about augmented reality. And I know that browsers, social media apps, it seems like every brand is trying to deliver an AR in some cool way. So, and again, I think it's interesting because it's a new way of thinking about a physical object. So you can place your object in your home. So again, it's like rethinking how you think of live interactivity. Tell us, Aaron, I understand in the center, you have sold an AR only item. Very cool. What does that mean? Tell us about what we're seeing there.
Yeah, so I think most shopping companies think of AR through the context of try on at home.
Yeah.
Like the examples you have there. I've seen Goat and Snapchat and, you know, different, even Gucci's app, you know, you can try on sunglasses, you can try on sneakers, right?
Yeah.
They use it as a tool, as a virtual dressing room. We think about it very differently. We think of AR as an actual item you want to buy and own. So in the center, we actually sold this item, which was an AR object. It cost, I think, around $4. And in the beginning, we're limiting the amount of these that we sell. So they're a limited edition augmented reality objects that you buy, and then you can take them and manipulate them and put them on your social media. And we're going to work with brands, artists, and creators to, you know, when we have physical objects for sale, sometimes those physical objects may be limited in quantity. But, you know, hey, you missed out on the physical object, you may have a chance to get the digital object. Sometimes we'll just sell digital objects. So when you think about probably one of the fastest growing commerce economies out there is things like video game skins, in-app purchase inside things like Fortnite, Call of Duty. That's a massive multi-billion-dollar industry. If you saw maybe the artist Cause, who's very popular in street culture, started selling his artwork in a digital AR sense for around $6 to $10 a few months ago. So we think this is an emerging new economy within the world of commerce, and we want to be at the forefront of this. And probably most of our competitors who are in the pure, you know, e-commerce space aren't thinking about this as a category, or even how this becomes an add value to a physical object. You know, a long time ago, there was a popular streetwear brand called Echo in the 90s and 2000s, and they, you know, sold a shirt that had a small DVD that came with it. It was like this extra content, right? How do you take that into this new e-commerce world? Instead of, you know, maybe, you know, sending you a video, we're giving you these new objects that are interactive, they're animatable, they're shareable. There's a lot we can be doing here. And in the future, you know, taking ideas like Pokemon Go type of engagement, how does that intertwine with e-commerce? How are we selling you, dropping a video game skin in our app like a sneaker? There's a lot of room in how we can start to play with this new world of AR and engagement and gamification. And we're really excited about where this is going. And of course, we could always do the try-on thing, but I think that's kind of commoditized, and we're really looking to be at the fringe of what's happening in this world.
Yeah, I love the idea of putting a piece of art in your home that you would never normally have access to. I think that's so cool.
Yeah, we can have a digital shelf of things that you've bought through the app.
Totally. It's very cool. Very exciting to see. Well, that's all the time we have for our 5 trends. And so make sure everyone gets your questions in. And a quick recap of the highlights from what we talked about today are: video shopping is the new live shopping, and interactivity is really important to that. Drops, they democratize exclusivity and they limit access in new ways. Sneakers are seen as collectibles, and they're really driving innovation and this idea of collecting art. And payments are getting a makeover, and brands are treating them as a way to build loyalty and as a new marketing moment. And then finally, augmented reality is a new way to interact with physical goods. So with that, we will take it to the questions. We had one that came in, first of all, that said, will these trends and behaviors stay beyond the pandemic or fade once the stores reopen?
Yeah, well, I think that like, oh, you want to go ahead?
There you go.
No, I just look, I think I was actually asking, obviously, we were asking ourselves, obviously, that question. You can imagine Klarna has seen a massive lift in volume due to the fact that we primarily work with online. We have a little bit of offline as well, but it's maybe like 5% of our total volume or something. But I think what actually made me believe that this is a shift is that I think people don't learn through reading or hearing, even though we like an inspirational reader or something like that. I think we learn by experience. And I think, and that was what made me realize this, is that this has been, and I don't want to because obviously COVID is also a very tragic, event for a lot of people, as, people have come. So with that said, if you look at what it's meant for the other people that hasn't been affected directly, it has been a very different experience where, we have been at homes and we haven't been in the stores and we've had only the digital channels to use and so forth. And that has meant that a lot of people have had a totally new experience. They have learned that we've actually, I give you one interesting aspect of this, which we see, which is in US currently, we're primarily in fashion and some broader categories, but in Europe, Klarna operates across all categories of online spending. And what we've seen is that people who are older, and I would say like 60, 70 and above, they are the ones that have increased their spending online the most during COVID. And so obviously, they were maybe not that keen to learn how to buy groceries online or whatever. And what's happened is this situation has actually, basically forced them to, or at least encouraged them to do that. And then they've had experience. This was actually quite easy. I like this. This was a good experience. And so that is why we are very right now convinced that, yes, obviously you will see a little bit of coming back as people shift their spending again. But on the other hand, we do think that a lot of this will actually stay.
Totally. Especially now that they've seen the convenience and they've seen we can shop, just like we're doing a whole conference right from our home, right?
Right.
Aaron, there's a lot of good questions coming in, so I don't think we're going to get to them all. So if you have something to ask that we don't cover, just email us, ask@voguebusiness.com, and we'll try to get to your questions. But Aaron, quickly, we have one coming in for you, which I think is really interesting. With drop culture, with this digital festival, how will this impact consumers' long-term connection with a specific brand?
I think it depends on the brand. I think certain brands, it allows them a very big platform to be discovered if you're a smaller brand. So when we've aggregated this much concurrent attention, it's a great opportunity to introduce a new brand or a new product. And I think it'll reach adoption or awareness faster than a brand trying to do it through their own channels, right? Because we're putting it right in the center of this concurrent attention, which is really the commodity that is most valuable there. For a large brand, it allows them to, I think, cast themselves in a certain light. So let's say there are certain brands that may want to use a moment like this to further their communication around, let's say, maybe their social justice initiatives, or a new product or a new partnership, right? So this is like primetime television, and what messaging you're going to put out. This is like your Super Bowl ad. So, while we have concurrent attention from some of the most influential and affluent consumers at once, what is it that you want to tell them? And that could, these are important times, and it's not just a time to transact on a commodity item or a relatively boring campaign. This is a time to make a bold statement for large and small brands.
Absolutely. Aaron, I have a question coming in for you, which is really interesting. How can a luxury brand integrate new payments while still, new payments options like Klarna, while still maintaining exclusivity?
I don't think that, I'm unaware of any stigma that giving people more optionality on payment, there's any kind of negative to that. People, especially people who are young, want aspirational things, whether it's these $500 to $2,000 plastic bears that are status symbols. These are like the Fabergé eggs of my generation, or you want to buy Virgil Abloh Louis Vuitton. A lot of times people want to buy things they probably can't afford. They want to buy, $2,500 Dior Nike sneakers. So giving them more ways to access that is a value to them. I don't think anyone thinks that decreases your brand value. And I've never actually been aware of that as a sentiment in any group of consumers. That may be some inner industry, narrative amongst people who create, not people that buy.
Sebastian, what is your response?
No, I think Aaron did a very good response. I'm
Okay,
not sure,
great.
but quickly, if I would add, look, we work with Farfetch, we work with Acne Studios, we work with a lot of premium Burberry, product premium brands. Like, I
Mhm.
think that, like, again, that's what I'm saying. Like, to me, you know, the offer of installments or free installments for consumers is an attractive introductory offer for people to try out Klarna. We try to think about our payment service as a much broader experience, and I think by now, a lot of users see that, and so they're using us for a lot of other reasons than only that feature.
Mhm.
So that's just one angle of what Klarna can offer. So.
Mhm. Absolutely. Well, that's all the time we have. Very quickly, I want to ask you. A few people asked if you want to, if a brand wants to partner with both of these platforms, anything specific you're looking for, or just like what should they know about working with both Network and Klarna?
You want
From
to
the
start?
network, oh, sorry, go. Just from the network side, we're looking for great brands, but then also narrative-led products from those brands, not commoditized products. And we're looking for things that we can bring first to market, meaning, we are the tip of the spear of the distribution strategy for that product. And I think that is the most simplistic way to kind of describe our merchandising strategy.
Yeah. I think from our side, actually, it has what we are very keen on is the partnership itself. So a payments company, traditionally would be handled by somebody in finance or something like that, right? And what Klarna does today spans multiple levels, right? So what we actually prefer is people that are looking for a genuine partnership rather than a supplier vendor type of relationship. H&M is a good example. Like we co-create with H&M. We challenge them and they challenge us on our services. We have built in specific features into their app. They have, offered new things with us. So like, that's what we really love when we can engage, whether it's a small brand or a big retailer, doesn't matter. But if it's like engaging with people that want to innovate, want to try new things, want to try different ways, whether it's in store, online, video, whatever it is, like those are the partners that we're looking for primarily, because we find there's so much still to do. This is like, that's the amazing thing. It's uncharted territory.
Absolutely. Well, thank you both so much. We have had some amazing questions come through. So I really appreciate all the questions come through and your time. Oh, I think we have a last slide. Sorry. I made it all the way through without messing up my slides. But if you did have a question that we didn't get to, email ask@voguebusiness.com. And of course, subscribe to our newsletters. And we'll see you again, I'm sure. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank
Thank you
you.
so much. It was great. Thank you.